Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Euro 2024. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Congratulations to Spain on winning Euro 2024. The champions have been crowned, James.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Do you know what? I thought there was a point where I thought, do you know what? It's a final. Anything can happen in a final. And then I heard that obviously Spain have won all 6 of their games. They've scored 13 goals in the process. And I just piped down, shut up. And I don't care who they play out of England and Netherlands. They're gonna be so dominant in terms of their style of play, possession, pressing. I look at it and I don't know how England would. I haven't watched enough of Netherlands to even comment, but I don't know how England would cope with Spain. They're just that good.
No team's ever won 6 consecutive games at Euros before.
Wow, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the format has changed a lot, right? The expansion of the competition, etc. So it's not as amazing as it sounds. So no team had won 6 before last night. So what you think they're going to do 7? I mean, we all gave Manchester United a big chance against Manchester City in the FA Cup final, didn't we?
Yeah, it is a final. It is a final, but yeah, should we just get straight into the game?
I'm clutching at straws now.
Yeah.
No, firstly, before we get into the game, we should acknowledge what happened yesterday.
That we were absolute geniuses because we do it with our timing all the time. We always record podcasts and then the fixtures get dropped, particularly for Sky, where it's more relevant, where the TV fixtures get announced. The number of times we've been waiting for fixtures to get dropped, we record, and then as soon as we finish recording, they stick the fixtures out. This time was a little bit more. We joked at the start of the pod about whether or not Sky was even going to be a thing, but we didn't really think that they were going to pull it, did we?
No,
and
we wouldn't have done the podcast if we did.
A decent podcast about the opening 6 weeks of fixtures from a Sky Fantasy Football perspective. In the afternoon, they have decided that they're no longer going to be running the game, which, considering towards the second half of last season, how much FPL content was on Sky, on the TV channels, I suppose they've really embraced FPL much more and will be embracing FPL much more into their content. And so it doesn't make sense for them to have a competing game against FPL running at the same time. I can totally understand that.
Sad though, isn't it?
Very, very. The outpouring of disappointment from the engaged players has been big. I love and I'm grateful for everybody that said, you know, can we do something? Would we do it? I'll just stick it out there right now that with the amount of time between, and I've spoken to people that are far more techie and clever than me, there's numerous issues along the way. Firstly, it's only 6 weeks till the season starts, give or take. So
5, basically.
5,
5.5.
It's, from a tech point of view, it'd be particularly difficult. Secondly, the way Sky obviously appealed for a lot of people was like a big cash prize. How we do that, wouldn't even know. And the most important thing is obviously if you're running a game that's using players' names and shirts and clubs, I'm sure there's issues around naming rights and fees. Like FIFA have to pay big money for FIFA, the computer game, to be able to use the players' names and so on and so on. 5 weeks is not time to be able to sort something like that. And genuinely, if we could, I would love to be able to. It's not possible in that time frame. Could we run something like Original Champ Man on Excel and do it that way? Google Sheets, probably, possibly, but the admin just would be a nightmare because something like this, you'd expect to get quite popular. There's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of players. Champ Man, I don't think ever topped out more than maybe 10, 15,000 players.
No, not even that, I don't think.
Yeah, so the admin would be a lot. Like genuinely, if I could wave a wand and make an alternative, and we had an alternative, yeah, we'd love to, because we do miss that game, and I don't know what we're going to do on our Wednesdays, but we'll figure it out, James. We'll figure it out.
We'll definitely figure something out from the content perspective. Yeah, I think I'd like to reiterate what you said, that probably you and I's initial reaction was let's make some calls yesterday. It's just not really viable in the time frame, unfortunately, to just like launch a new game. And yeah, I know all the rules are in place. In my head, I was like, all the patrons can do the pricing and stuff like that. It's not just the licensing of players, which I don't think is too much of a big deal as long as you don't use official branding and stuff. But do you need a gaming license? Exactly what you said about prize, etc. I think from Sky's perspective, it's a shame for them because I won't have been the only person that did this, but I just went straight into the Sky Bet account and just withdrew the money I had in there from winnings I had in mini leagues this year. I won't be the only one who's done that. And I think one of the beauties of Sky was obviously, yes, the world where everything revolves around £50,000. But actually, I think the outpouring yesterday was quite a lot of, can you fuck the prize? Just want to play the game,
Enjoy the
basically.
game. Just enjoy
Yeah.
the game.
Because the
Yeah.
format, as I've said several times over, is the best format. But yeah, I think in hindsight, the more you thought about it yesterday, the fact that Sky, as in television channel, was so much embracing FPL, the kind of the writing was on the wall that it was going to get to this point. And I think it's a real shame personally, but we don't know what sort of costs they would have had with running the game. Forget the 50,000 prize. What was the cost to them in terms of running the game? I think it's the external stuff you don't really see in front of you that
Mm.
obviously is going to be an expense for them, and it was obviously no longer worthwhile for them. But they
Yeah,
didn't
I can
push the
understand.
game. If they'd have then pushed the game themselves, anyway, whatever. I get it. They cover the Premier League. They're going to push the official game, etc.
Yeah.
How was your Euro fantasy evening?
Oh, I had it open in front of me. I didn't do too badly, I think, James. Oh, let's click on my team. Why is it not telling me my points?
All right. Oh,
I'm on 37 as it stands at the
oof,
moment
it's
because
good.
I had Lamina Yamal and I had Danny Almo. I captained Teo Hernandez. So he got me a 3-pointer. Laporte 4, Cucurella 3, but everybody else was nada. I'll be subbing out Mannion's 1 point, Saliba's 1 point, Nico Williams 2 points, and Rodri's 2 points. So I'm going to be losing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Six.
6. And I'm going to be moving the captaincy off Teo Hernandez. So 7, 8,
So
9. I'm going to be
nine
moving off
done.
9 points. So I'll be back down to 28. But I've
Okay.
got 5 players tonight. I've got Gakpo, Jordan Pickford, John Stones, Bellingham, and Saka. So if I can get up to 50, I'll be pretty happy with that.
Yeah. So I'm on 25. I've already made the changes. Even if one
Who
of my
did you
players was
captain, James?
Jules Koundé.
Mbappe. Oh,
No,
okay.
I went Jules Koundé. At this stage, it's almost easier to grab the defensive return rather than the attacking return. Basically, when you kind of know they're going to be low scoring games most of the time. I mean, if you just said to people before the game last night, there'd be 3 goals. I think a lot of people actually would have been quite surprised. So I
Yeah,
went
yeah,
Jules
for sure.
Koundé in terms of returns, 3 for Koundé, 3 for Cucurella, 3 for Hernandez, and Mbappe's assist, and almost 7. Nothing else for me. Similar to you, taking 6 out. So I'm on 25, having already done that. Captaincy for me, choices tonight: Pickford, Gay, Bellingham, Gakpo. Um, and I think if you said to me now, what's the greater probability England keeping a clean sheet tonight, or Bellingham or Gakpo getting an attacking return? I think it's probably on the England clean sheet. So I'm going to captain Gay because with Gay and the ball recoveries as well, there's every chance you're looking at sort of 7, 8 pointer. So I think I'm going to captain Mark Gay tonight. But he's from a fantasy perspective, it's at a nothing stage now, isn't it?
I've got the armband on John Stones. So exactly the same thoughts as you. The only thing with Gahey is, will he come back in for concert? You'd think he would. You'd think he would. But
Yeah.
Conte
Oh,
did okay last game. So yeah, look, you've made the choice on which one to go with. I think Stones is a lock in for me, so I'm going to go with
there's
John
at the
Stones.
time of recording, there's nothing confirmed on the England team tonight, but the general thought process at the moment is probably same starting team, but Gay for Conte, yeah,
Yeah,
is the
cool.
most likely. That
Spain to go on.
I was just going to say that was more fun last night than most of us were expecting, actually.
Yeah, to be honest with you, really, really good. Having to turn around to my son towards the end of the game and say, he's only 5 years older than you. He's only
It's
my son's 12. He's a boy. My son's a little child. This guy's 5 years older. 5 years is nothing.
It's unbelievable.
I'm
It
sure I
really,
couldn't tie my shoelaces when I was
really
16.
is. And I almost hate the fact that we have to say how old he is every time. I've said that a few times during this tournament,
No, it's highly relevant.
but you can't help it.
Think about when Theo Walcott went with England to the World Cup under Sven. You didn't see him with the same swagger and confidence and even ability almost.
But this lad isn't. It's not like, oh, he's just a 16-year-old playing for Spain. You go, oh, okay, that's amazing in itself. He's like key player, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's, it's like
And
one of the best players in the team.
you look at when Wayne Rooney broke through. The difference then is Wayne Rooney was a man. He was built like a man.
Well, Yamal
Lamal,
isn't built
not
like a
Spanish players
16-year-old.
generally aren't that way minded, but Lamal isn't particularly massively physically imposing. Wayne Rooney already was when he was that age. Yeah, I mean, to be a starter and to be influential in the team in that way, and he picked up player of the match yesterday. Yeah, you just got to doff your cap. Rabiot eating his words, no doubt. Left him fucking in the mud, didn't he?
Who Rabiot?
Yeah, yeah,
Obviously, it could be difficult for him to deal with a semi-final in a big tournament and to reach a final at Euros. He needs to do more than he's done up until now. Wow, Adrian Rabiot, dig your grave, mate.
yes, mate. It was just the fade to the right, the way he went to the right and moved back. That body movement was just beautiful, beautiful.
You
Yeah,
know what's really interesting about him is I don't know if anyone else really noticed this last night, um, but he doesn't really take his man on. So, like, I think you could have a perception if you've just sort of seen highlights and stuff that Nico Williams and Lamine Yamal are these two kind of like flying players on the outside of the pitch. Now, Williams is incredibly direct. Yamal, I think, I only completed, I think, one dribble last night. I think it was
okay.
quite late in the game. He's one of them that people now have to look at and go, oh my God, we've got to get to him quickly. And that might be the best way to stop him is, but he feels like he can, at the same time, he glides across the pitch. Like he can resist. He's got the upper body strength despite his age that he can move away from people. But perhaps that's the best way to deal with him because actually, if you give him time to deliver, he has a really, really interesting technique, um, which I sort of thought the cross that he set up the goal for Fabian Ruiz against Georgia, where he puts his cross in. And I watched it over several times over because Ruiz ends up heading the ball from like 4 yards out. You're like, well, goalkeeper should deal with that. And every time I watch it, I'm like, he can't come. The goalkeeper can't come. There's no blame on Mamadashvili, partly because his defenders are too deep, so he can't be high in a higher position himself. But the way he almost flicks the ball,
Mhm.
he doesn't really kind of like drive through it or just whip it. He flicks with almost like a backspin, so he gets the dip on what he's doing. I mean, the goal yesterday is just unsavable. I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
what you can
unsavable.
do to stop that because at the same time, as much as you can say, oh, he's got amazing technique, etc. If he's going to hit that from 30 yards, you probably do think, go on then, lad, but what you got?
Yeah,
Um, it's unsavable. It's
yeah, agreed.
unsavable. I mean, for me, I mean, moment of the tournament was Jude against Slovakia, but from a neutral perspective, that was it. And I sat there, and the wife's in the room with me yesterday, and I had to do it. And if it's like if you were with someone and they didn't know, you had to go. He's only 16, like you
Yeah, yeah,
can't help it.
yeah.
I would give a caveat warning because now what's going to happen now that he's done that on this stage, youngest ever goal scorer in a European Championship or a World Cup in history, and to do it with a goal like that in a semi-final, and because of who he plays for, the Messi comparisons are going to go through the roof.
Hmm.
Calm down. I saw a brilliant stat last night of I think three players who had scored five or more La Liga goals for Barcelona at 17 or under. And Messi's not one of them. The other two were Bojan Kirkic, who you might remember
Hmm.
went on to briefly play for Stoke City. He had a decent, fine career, but wasn't perhaps the player that people thought he was going to go on and be. And the other one is Ansu Fati, who, tell me one game you remember him playing for Brighton last year.
Yeah. I do remember he came on and scored a goal off the bench, but don't
Very,
remember who
very
against.
injury interrupted. I'm not attacking or criticizing, but what I'm saying is Ansu Fati had an impact going
He
straight
hasn't
in the
kicked on.
Barcelona team where people thought, oh, this lad's going to be a world beater and would be like, in the Spain squad, etc., etc. So it comes with a warning, not to go too over the top too soon about him. And I always think back to what you mentioned Rooney. Rooney's best for England was as an 18-year-old. That was his best tournament for England. And it's not to say this is going to be the case for Yamal, but it's something that's happened on trend and is happening more and more and more of these explosive young players. And then they hit their mid-20s and their best is long gone. And most of us will look at Yamal now, he's 16. What's he going to be in 10 years? Well, he might actually have his best over the next 3-4 years. He might also go and become one of the greatest players of all time, but slow down. But it's also okay to absolutely enjoy him at the moment. He's a
Oh,
joyful
100%.
he's a joyful player to
Smiling
watch as
all the
well.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. That's all you want to see
there's a
is
brilliant
that. It's
image
just amazing.
when I mean Rabiot's quite a dislikable player, I think, for most neutrals as well. So the fact that he threw that back in his face by just letting your football do the talking, it was an absolutely magnificent image of Yamal running back towards the bench, and they've all come off the bench, and it's like he's about to slide on his knees, and they almost look like they're about to start bowing at him, which are not because they've got their arms in their air celebrating. But it's like it was almost like a king moment, like bowing to a king, and
Yeah.
it's just a boy. I mean, he might have never been kissed, Suj. Like, who knows? It's
Nah, man's got
insane.
Gallon. Man's got Gallon everywhere.
I mean,
Listen,
I'd be
incredible
surprised if he
performance from
doesn't.
Spain.
But
I mean, they made hard work of it in the second half a little bit, as you would, and obviously France were chasing the game. Um, but their strength in depth and the way they play, I don't see either of the other semi-finalists giving them any difficulty. What is your thoughts on like maybe playing Joe Gomez at left back to tackle like a defensive-minded left back to tackle Lamar?
it's an interesting theory. First thing is, can we win tonight first?
Yeah, yeah, of
Before
course.
before we start.
But just
I
thinking of
mean,
differently about it a little bit.
I wonder if the psyche for England fans has changed this morning because I can't believe any England fan would be sitting there right now going, "I think we beat them."
Yeah, yeah, no,
You
it's a
couldn't.
bonus now. But I suppose
So
it takes the pressure off all of a sudden
a little
differently.
bit. Listen,
Mm.
obviously, still want to win tonight, but there would be no question that the narrative for England would change going into Sunday, where the pressure on winning would be. There's obviously pressure winning a final, but there wouldn't be an expectation on it. We would clearly go in against underdogs. Yeah, I think probably on what I've seen this tournament, they're probably the best balanced international team. Probably, I think I've seen probably since Germany 2014. I think they've just got a layer of everything about them. But within that Spain, there's definitely still weaknesses. Again, I don't want to jump ahead to Sunday night, but one player that Harry Kane regularly has success against is Aymeric Laporte. He's one of his
Mm.
favourite opponents. And it just happens sometimes. How many times have I said you Kane can never get the better of Zuma? And you'd
Mm.
be like, that's really weird that. Why is that?
Yep.
Laporte is always on edge when he plays Kane. There's something to think about if we do win the game tonight. There is definitely vulnerability in that centre back area. Now I realise on Sunday, irrespective of who Spain will play, Lenormand and Carvajal will go back in the team. 100% if the Dutch win, Weghorst should start.
Mhm.
It'll really concern them, I think. There's definitely vulnerability in that area. Equally, the two central midfield players are obviously fantastic in Rodri and Fabian Ruiz, who people hadn't
Ruiz.
seen before. People just absolutely adore now. I mean, as a midfield partnership, it doesn't get much better than that. But what I would say is it's a slightly different role for Rodri, who quite often is sitting as very much a single pivot for Manchester City and conducts through everything. Like if how many times have you seen Rodri sort of passing numbers be under 60 and stuff? We know this from playing Sky Fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Not often. And you could say, well, maybe Spain didn't have as much of the ball last night. You said to me, Spain going to have 58% of the ball and Rodri's going to complete less passes than the possession you've got. I'm going to be extremely surprised. And I do think they got better the longer the second half went on. But there is a vulnerability, I think, when the ball hits their penalty area. And I do also think there's a vulnerability for them in terms of midfield runners off the ball to face them back. The two wide players, despite all their exceptional quality, do work really hard, diligently and defensively. They both do, actually. And it was noticeable, I said to you on Monday, that they were so much weaker when they came off against Germany. And last night, you could tell De La Fuente did not want to take those two players off. Because 100%, they're not bringing on weak players, but in terms of what the threat of they are as 1v1 dribblers slash creators, it's a little bit of a downward step. I think they're better off for having Dani Olmo in the team than Pedri. Pedri's another young player that we all really, really adore. But I think Olmo's got a little bit more in terms of output at the top end of the
Goal threat.
pitch,
Yeah,
which
goal threat's there with him all the
which
time. He's top got a goal scorer joint in the competition. He was going to get the golden boot, right? If it stays as
exactly
is.
that, despite what not starting a number of the games. And I think that's really helpful for Morata as well, because Morata can be unreliable in terms of his output of goal scoring numbers at the top end. But I must say, what a job for the team he did last night in terms of it's almost exactly what you'd want Harry Kane in terms of defensive role and dropping in short to win free kicks, take pressure off the
Yeah.
team, etc. I thought he was really good, Morata. Have you seen the incident after the game, though?
I think
I said,
it should be all right, surely.
you would think so,
But
but
what a prat. I mean, okay, he didn't mean to slip and hurt him. I understand that. But
yeah, but the bigger thing here is this has been way too much in this tournament of people getting on a pitch. And the
right.
real danger of this is for the 99.9% of us who don't want to run on a football pitch, that this keeps happening because of no one wants fences back or anything like that, right?
This was a photographer though. So who was supposed to be on the pitch or security? I don't know
Yeah,
what it
but it's
was. It was
because
someone with a bib.
they were trying to stop someone who was running on the pitch.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's why there was like a
That's why
panic
he
in
was
that
stalking. Because
moment.
I was like, why would you run at towards? I didn't realize that was what was
Yeah,
happening.
someone ran on the pitch again.
Right. And then it was the guy who was trying to stop the guy running on the pitch, then clashed into Morata. Right.
I mean, it's felt like nearly every other game someone's run on the pitch.
Yeah.
So something needs to be done about that massively. And we can all reflect on it afterwards and be like, oh, okay, no real harm done. Well, there's a player here who might miss the final, but there's also concern that something way more serious is going to happen. And I'm nervous about that. So
Agreed.
they've got to do something about that, because I don't want to go to football and have fences back in front of me or anything like that. Deserved victory for Spain, despite France having some really good opportunities. And actually, the irony here is there's a case to say this was France's best performance as well.
Yeah, I
The,
would have said the same thing.
the key moment in the game, I felt, was a couple of key things happened. Obviously, brilliantly taken goal from Colin Mawani from an exceptional cross from Mbappe, who definitely looked freer for having this mask off of his face. But just before that, Yamal, yes, him again, had put on an extremely similar opportunity for Fabian Ruiz that he should have scored and headed over. And I think a lot of people in that moment must have thought, oh my God, I can literally write the headlines of what this will be as a discussion tomorrow, two big chances created, very similar. France took theirs, Spain didn't. At 1-0, there was a breakaway, and Jesus Navas, who is absolutely old enough to be Yamal's father, by the way. I think he'd won a Europa League before Lamine Yamal had been born, for context. Obviously playing behind him. Got a yellow card for a foul on Rabiot. And I think it was the key moment of the game because Mbappe was in. And Rabiot should have played the pass earlier anyway, but that felt like a key moment. Mbappe was in and running at them. If it had gone to, yeah, I think the takeaway for me, it felt like last night, was if England were to play Spain and have a chance against them, there has to be an out. And I kept watching the game and thinking about Anthony Gordon last night. I think that's the one, but I don't know how you get that in the team. And similarly as well, and I used a reference yesterday saying that on Patreon that I felt if we played France, there was a real strong case not to play with a number 9, and I just overload centrally against Spain and Kane's historical against Laporte. No, but I don't know how
Yeah,
you. Kane needs a wide player. You've got to against Spain in transition. You've got to be quick, and we're not. And
the
just a
challenge with
simple outball like that
Gordon,
would
like
help.
if you said to me, you got to play Anthony Gordon, where are you going to play him? I'd say left wing back with the back three is the way you'd squeeze him in. But do you want Gordon dealing with Yamal the other way? Like it doesn't make sense. I wouldn't want Gordon to be that guy because I don't want him having to worry about Lamine Yamal defensively, which might restrict him moving forward, unless you really rely on your left-sided centre back if it's Gahey to deal with it. You may as well just shuffle across as a 4 almost then. Yeah, I think I see what you're saying. It's going to be tricky. I mean, going in, let's get tonight out of the way. Let's get tonight out of the way. Let's talk about anything to add on France. Like
Um,
Deschamps's going to stay in the role, do you think?
I mean, I don't want to criticize anything tactically last night, but I think what most of us did see was, and again, they did create some decent moments where composure and finishing really let them down. And it's worth saying there was some big chances in there, really bigger than perhaps they might have looked. But I think a lot of us suspected they would be in trouble if they went behind in the game, and they were. They were. But I'm also to counter that. I think a lot of people probably thought when France scored, even though it was so early, like, oh, I fancy France will go through from here. I don't want to say I would have fancied England against France, but I don't think it would feel like almost a foregone conclusion that Sunday might feel like if we're blessed enough to win this evening. I think you could have imagined that England France was going to be first goal wins almost.
Yeah.
Um, Mbappe clearly wasn't right, and that's understandable. Start criticism of him. I think the amount of quality they have, it's a disappointment. Backline as strong as anything else in the tournament. I think you'd look across all of their back four and the goalkeeper and say that that part of the team performed very well throughout the tournament. Um, Dembele,
Ante was man of the match in numerous games as
yeah,
well.
Dembele is a glimpses moment player. But it almost felt like they were so reliant on Mbappe having that X factor moment. At least Dembele carried the fight in extra time against Portugal a little bit. You feel like he's been sent on with clear instruction of go and try and win the football match. I think because Mbappe underperformed, it had a negative impact on a lot of the rest of the team. They didn't deserve to make the final. And by the way, let's not confuse this. If England make the final, England don't particularly deserve to make it either. But the narrative of negative football loses out if England lose tonight. I don't think it'll necessarily be correct because I think the Dutch might revert to being quite negative tonight as well, actually.
Yeah, the atmosphere with England is going to be very different today. Despite the last round, we didn't particularly play well. Everybody's in a positive mindset because of how the penalty shootout finished. Like it was the first time I felt that was a outpouring of positivity towards the team. And they've talked about it throughout the tournament where it's difficult because of all the negativity they've had to deal with, all the criticism of Gareth, all the criticism of the style of play. After that penalty shootout win, it was talk about how composed they were in the penalties, how much confidence they had. There's been a lot more positive outpouring, how cool Tony was with his no-look stuff. I think this is the first time in the tournament that the overriding sentiment towards the team is positive rather than negative. And I just hope that gives them the freedom to go out today and play. That's all you want them to do. Go out and play your football the best you can. And fingers crossed they do. I still 1-0 England for me. I think the most likely thing is they keep them out at the back because we are defensively quite solid, and then we nick a goal. If we do that and we score in the first 60 minutes, it's going to be a shit final half an hour because we will sit in and invite the pressure, but largely deal with it well. Yeah, I'm going with a 1-0 England win, but ground out, sluggish today.
come to peace now with the idea of a very long evening is the easiest way to manage your emotions for what will happen. I suspect it will be a long night. I suspect it probably will go to penalties again. Um, which that's more confidence I had in England than I did towards the back in the last weeks. I genuinely thought we would lose to Switzerland. As I said already, I don't think the Dutch are, I certainly don't think they're as well coached as Switzerland. They have individuals we're familiar with, and perhaps a little bit more individualistic quality where someone like Depay could be absolutely shit, but could also win the game with a moment of magic. They've got a little bit more about them than that. I think there was a rare opportunity here for England to dominate in the midfield area because I really like, I particularly like Rinders. And Schouten is another good footballer as well. But I do think you can numerically manipulate them if they go with the same system. They might drop Xavi Simons into a deeper role potentially. They did earlier in the tournament start with Joey Veerman in a deeper role when Rinders played quite high against Poland. They might revert to that a little bit, and perhaps I wouldn't be shocked if the team dropped and it's like Simmons is back in a wide position, perhaps on the right, or even as a false nine with Depay to the right, or more likely Simmons right, Depay up front, Gakpo will play on the left. Because they've kind of flirted with the idea of a bit of Daniel Mahler and a bit of Steven Bergwijn. If the Dutch go with that similar setup that we've seen in the last couple of games against Romania and Turkey, I actually genuinely believe England can create numerical overloads in central areas and really pull those two central midfielders apart and create some joy. I think the clear thing in the majority of the Netherlands games is the majority of teams have been creating chances against them. You know, Turkey will look back on that quarterfinal and think they were probably a little bit unlucky, particularly from a chance creation perspective. In a weird way, although you could certainly make a case to say this is England's toughest challenge so far, it might be their easiest in terms of trying to create opportunities. And yet I can't get away from the belief that this will be tight, cagey. First goal will feel important. I think there's a narrative to the game that might be really awkward for England if they are winning 1-0 late on, because you know what's coming. Weghorst is going on the pitch, and that's a very different thing to try and defend against. And I think although, say, Stones and Gay are both good in the air, I don't think they're dominant in the air in the way, to be honest, say, like a Harry Maguire would be. So even if we're in control, 1-0, 20 minutes to go, if Weghorst comes on, game changes. And we've seen that impact before. Think of the Netherlands-Argentina quarterfinal from a couple of years ago. Yeah, it's a dangerous game. We could play well and get beat, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's probably more likely that we play badly and go through. I think when the night's done, I think we'll get the job done. But I don't see it being a thriller, kids.
No. Cool. Well, listeners, you'll be back tomorrow with Clayton to review it. I'm going to be traveling back to Blighty, mate. So I'll be back in England tomorrow for a few days, which touchwood means that I can record with you in person on Monday. But let's
Nice.
see how that plans out. So look forward to listening to you guys on my travels back, reviewing England, and pray to God that you are reviewing an England win. Like, this is the first game in the tournament that I feel, come on, England, engaged. Up until now, I've been passively watching. Tonight, I'm going to be watching, shouting and cheering. So come on, England, let's do it. Let's get to the final, and then it's all to play for. And I hope, listeners, wherever you are, you get to enjoy the game as well. If you're in the Netherlands, I mean, enjoy it in your own way as well, because it's what it's about. But stay safe, look after yourselves. Don't run on the pitch, kids. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Come on, England. Cue music, please, man child.